Hey, what's up? It's Steve, aka the Sign Picker, and today I'm going to talk about how collecting street signs is a lot like collecting vinyl records. So I've always loved music. I grew up with a lot of vinyl records around, and I came up in the CD era. And once the resurgence of vinyl started happening around 2009 and 2010, I was all over it. And prior to me being a sign picker, I was on the vinyl hunt. You, of course, may know me from my videos sharing my street sign collection, but right on the other side of this wall is my collection of vinyl records, probably around 1,000 12-inch records plus stacks of 45s. From there, I started an independent record store locator website called vinylhunt.com. That is no longer in existence, but if you check out Vinyl Hunt on Instagram, that account is still there. You could see all of my records in my collection. I would play them as I would spin them, kind of like how I feature street signs today. But I have been collecting street signs a lot longer. I got my first street sign around 6 years old. And when you have a really large collection, whether it's vinyl records or street signs or anything else like license plates, baseball cards, when you get into the hundreds, it's really, really important that you have some sort of method to your organization. So first of all, vinyl records come in various shapes and sizes. Probably the most common one is the 12-inch record, which spins at 33 revolutions per minute. This is the cover of a 12-inch record, which is usually a little more than 12 inches square. The record slides right out like that. There are also 7-inch records, also known as 45s, and these spin at 45 revolutions per minute. Typically, these slide right in and out of the jacket, but sometimes they do have an inner sleeve as well, just like the 33 12-inch that I showed. And you also have 10-inch records, which are also known as 78s, which spun at 78 revolutions per minute. This is an old 78, meaning that it is very, very brittle. A lot of these 78s don't make it through without cracking or chipping, not like today's vinyl records. 10-inch records are still released today, but a lot of them are either 33 or 45 speed. They are not so much 78 speed as they used to be. 78 is just not as common of a speed that you see anymore. Here's one by the band Wilco. And you can see that this one was pressed on red vinyl. This was a Record Store Day exclusive release from a few years back. And typically vinyl records are round, but sometimes you do have die-cut vinyl records. This one by Cheech and Chong was released on Record Store Day, which took place on April 20th of 2019. And this one is just a cutout shape, but you could see it's round in the center, and that's where the record spins, and I believe this one is a 45. This is also what is known as a picture disc, so that means that there is a graphic, which is a little bit different than color vinyl, but they are both very, very awesome. So inside, I have all my 33 records stacked together, organized by genre. I have all my 45 records together, and the smallest stack are my 10-inch records. And just like vinyl records, my street signs have various shapes and sizes, which govern my whole organization system here in the sign shop. Here are 12 by 24 flat, 12 by 24 embossed, 24 by 24, various shapes in here, more 24 by 24 here, and then all the larger sizes down at the bottom. And they kind of go from smallest to largest. Over here is where I have my smaller size signs, 12 by 18, 8 by 8s, all of these really small, obscure sizes that aren't the standard like these signs here. Of course, these signs also come in different shapes. Rectangles, octagon, triangle, shields, circles, squares, whatever geometric shape that is, 5-sided, just weird shapes that I don't even think have a name. Really long rectangles, tall rectangles, small signs, bigger signs. But when you group all of those varying shapes together, it creates a much better system of organization, whether it's signs or vinyl records. When it comes to the storage of both vinyl records and street signs, a vertical storage system like this tends to work best. It would not be very practical to store these stacked up, because if you need to get something from down at the bottom of the pile, you're going to have to move a lot of street signs off of it, and street signs are very, very heavy. For those of you who have never moved a vinyl record collection, lots and lots of vinyl records all together can also be very, very heavy. That's why it's important that when you are storing your vinyl record collection, that you never store them horizontally like this. Always store them vertically like this. Any records that are down at the bottom of a pile that is stacked very, very tall and very, very heavy will ruin, potentially warp, the records down at the bottom of the pile. Another tip for storing vinyl records is to store them in these outer plastic sleeves, and that will keep your covers nice and clean. When you start pulling records in and out of your collection and the records start rubbing up on each other, if they're not protected by an outer sleeve, that will start to damage the cover. You'll get dirt, you'll get scrapes and scratches on the cover. These outer sleeves make it really, really nice to protect the cover of your vinyl record. I'm still trying to figure out what that system is for protection for my sign collection. Because when I pull a sign out, it just comes out like that. And a lot of times it does scrape and scratch on the signs next to it. But you know what? For me, vinyl records are different than street signs. Vinyl records, I want to keep my records very, very clean. I want to keep those covers intact. When it comes to street signs, I like stuff that has been weathered, that's been out in the elements for a really long time. So the kinds of signs that I collect, pulling them in and out of the stack like this probably is not going to make as much of a visual difference because of the condition that they are already in. I have a lot of signs that are just rusty and bent, that are in pretty bad shape. Here is a parking sign that is just completely covered in rust. For a vinyl record, this would be completely unacceptable for me. But for a street sign, it's totally okay. As you can see, most of my collection here is stacked upright, and you access the signs by pulling the side and pulling it out of the shelf. For these smaller signs, which are 12 by 18, I have more of a top-down organization method, almost like if you've gone digging through vinyl at the record store. So I could come through here, find the sign that I want, by flipping it top down. Once I find the one I want, I pull it out like this. So I have my records stored vertically and sectioned off by genre. Then within each genre, each record is sorted alphabetically, either by artist or by group. So that makes it really, really easy when I'm trying to find a particular record. I'm able to go into the genre and then locate the artist or the group very, very quickly. My street sign collection is somewhat similar. I can flip through the collection, kind of how I would vinyl records, like this. But I really don't have this organized in terms of whatever the street sign equivalent of genre and artist and group would be. I do have them organized by size. So as long as I know what sign I'm looking for, if I know its size, I'm able to locate it very, very quickly. There are options that I could use to organize these better. So in some cases, in these stacks like this one right here, I have all my guide signs and information signs. Usually those are green and blue, and also regulatory signs, which are white with black lettering in the front. And then in the back, I have all of my yellow diamond-shaped warning signs. I could get even deeper and alphabetize them, or I can organize them by their individual unique codes, which are located in the manual on uniform traffic control devices. But when it comes to my street sign collection, I don't have as many signs as I do vinyl records. So I think getting down to that level of detail for this size collection isn't necessary. Vinyl records have a grading system, and you grade the vinyl record separately than you would grade its cover, but they all follow the same categories. Mint all the way down to fair and poor. Street signs don't have quite as detailed of a grading system, but if they did, this sign would be a near mint NM because it's never been hung, it's brand new, never been put out on the road, so that would be a near mint, pretty much almost flawless. This sign would be a VG or a VG+. VG stands for very good. This one also has not been hung, but it does have some blemishes around the sides, some things that like a record collector would want to pay attention to And if you sent them a VG Plus record, but you advertised it as a mint or near mint, they wouldn't be very happy with you. So if this were a record, I would grade it at a VG or VG Plus. There's some nicks going on here. There's some marks here, some wear around the sides, which if it was a vinyl record, would be called ring wear. This sign, if it was a vinyl record, would probably be listed as a fair to poor condition. But again, for me, the standards are very, very different for street signs. I love this sign because of all the wear and character that it has. Check out the back on that. Look at all the damage and scratches and nicks. I love that. So certainly opposite of vinyl records. If I get a vinyl record, typically I'm looking for the best condition. When it comes to a street sign, this poor condition is completely acceptable for me. See, after I put that in, paint chips started flying everywhere. You would never see me do that with my vinyl records. When I look back to when I got my first street sign at 6 years old, I think one of the things that has attracted me to road signage and traffic control is the very visual nature of our signage system. It's all about shape, color, size, typography, and me being in marketing, formerly a web designer who would lay out web pages. I'm very attracted to anything that uses those types of visual elements. If you look at the manual on uniform traffic control devices, you can see that our traffic control signage system is almost like a brand standards manual in and of itself, almost like a company would use to define their logo usage standards. It tells you everything that you can and can't do with street signs. It governs all of the rules, all of the sizes, all of the exact colors that they need to be. So street signs across all 50 United States are very, very consistent. You could drive from Maine all the way to California, and those signs are going to be pretty much the same through each state that you go through. And even when you look at my sign wall, they're all very visual, they're all very unique, but they're all very consistent at the same time. And that is why I love album artwork. And in this digital age, you just don't get album artwork like you used to. Very, very cool, very, very detailed artwork. Sometimes it would open up and this just held the music that's inside, ingrained in the vinyl record. Just very, very cool stuff. You could spend hours and hours looking at this album artwork. But again, very, very visual, just like all of these signs, something that attracts me to both vinyl and street signs. In signage, cool typography, lots of illustration, lots of color. Very awesome one here with the iconography of the police car. Very, very detailed around here and around here. Even has an antenna on it, like an old school police car. Great color, iconography, curved baseline, Great Lakes in here. Street signs don't oftentimes have photography on them, but I did manage to find one from Indianapolis that does have a headshot on it. This is my one sign that has any kind of photograph printed on it. The challenge in having a very large vinyl record collection or a very large street sign collection is that when they're stored in this way, sometimes it's hard to pull those out and really enjoy them because all of the color, all of the shape, all of the covers, all of the typography is kind of buried within the stacks of your collection. So that's why I built a sign wall. So for those of you who follow my videos, the whole point of the sign wall is for me to pull signs out of this collection and display them for maybe 3 to 4 weeks at a time. It allows me to reconnect with my collection because sometimes I forget what signs I have and that I've acquired over the years. Same thing goes for vinyl records. If you have a very large vinyl record collection, sometimes you lose sight and you lose track of all the records that you've purchased over time. And then you start going through and you pull something out like, oh, I forgot I even had this. And a lot of people will have a dedicated space where they have their records facing out. You can also purchase vinyl record frames that you could store your records in. Now, you can only probably store a few of those like that if you have a pretty large collection. But that's why with my sign collection, I just pull out anywhere from 10 to 15 signs and put them on the wall, and I rotate those throughout the year. And at the end of the day, whatever you collect, whether it's signs or records, for me, I find that process to be very therapeutic. Whether I'm going into a vinyl record shop and I'm digging through crates and I'm trying to locate something that I don't have, it's all about the thrill of the hunt. I get the same adrenaline rush when I go down to the scrap yard or I'm looking on Facebook Marketplace, or I'm looking on eBay, or I'm digging through people's garage sales, looking for discarded, used street signs. Once I find something that I don't have, it's really, really exciting. And just to spend an hour either crate digging or going through piles of street signs, for me personally, I find that to be very, very relaxing and then rewarding once you find something that you can add into your collection. And at the end of either one of those experiences, you know you've done a good job based on how dusty your hands are, which my hands are a little dirty right now going through these street signs. Sometimes you go through these old vinyl record collections that have been sitting in somebody's basement or attic for a really long time. Your hands are going to get a little dirty. So there it is. You may not have thought about the similarities between collecting street signs and collecting vinyl records. There are many, many parallels between the two collections, how you store them, the visual interest I have in each one of those collections. Hope it was interesting for you. If you want to follow along with all of my videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button or follow me over on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, Sign Picker, and I will see you in the next video.